All right, looks like we're doing well. I think we should probably get this party started. Just want to welcome Sherry out to the stage. We're going to talk about our upcoming release, specifically about timelines and some of the exciting things the team has been doing just to get all the pieces ready for you folks. Great.
Thanks, David. Hello, everyone. Excited to see you guys again. Last week, as everybody see the release announcement channel, we didn't do a release last week because the teams are also, most of us are in New York. And we are currently migrating our toolings for Genesis and operator toolings to a new tool, the Aptos CLIs you guys been using. So we will revamp our DevNet release likely tomorrow. And then we will publish the release notes and announcement along with the release tomorrow. So this week is going to be a early release, not going to be Thursday. It's going to be Tuesday, since we're also preparing for our incentivized testnet launch later. The registration open on Thursday.
Awesome. And so to talk a little bit about the upcoming release, I'd like to share what we've been first internally. As you probably have seen, there's some nice improvements on our TypeScript SDK. I think we mentioned this a little bit before, but they're more or less ready for folks to start using our BCS transaction generation code within the TypeScript SDK, which will allow you to generate a transaction to submit to the blockchain without having to do the multiple round trips approach that we had to do before when you were using the user request, a transaction request. So now you can simply just generate a BCS transaction and submit that without having to do that double round trip. There's also been some improvements in terms of getting stuff ready for AIT2, ranging from efforts in the node health checker framework to help folks understand the status and health of their nodes, as well as some exciting work surrounding leader reputation and consensus so that we can really identify peers that are behaving appropriately in terms of voting and proposal generation. Let me just double check on anything else that we want to call out there quickly. I think that's the big exciting things from the community perspective. The other thing that you may also notice if you are contributors on GitHub is that we have changed around the CI/CD system to make it much more intuitive and accessible. So now when you submit your PRs with the help of a Aptos contributor, you can actually easily see your CI/CD runs directly within inside of the GitHub push framework, which will hopefully make it a lot easier for debugging. And we actually have an individual on today, Mana, that will run through some of his recent experiences in this process. Before we get to him, I just want to share off a couple other things, specifically in terms of external contributions. One of them was we noticed over the weekend, or actually last week, while we were off in New York, that there was actually a really exciting conversation regarding wallet standards in Discord. And as a result, the team has created a wallet-dev Discord chat to help the community better engage and actually to really focus on what are the challenges in getting us ready for mainnet from the wallet perspective. And that's going to be absolutely critical. The team does actually have a wallet team in existence. We are still just kind of figuring out all the different pieces there to make sense of that, but would love to have community contributions where appropriate and wherever anybody's interested in. We also saw some documentation improvements from Font M2. Alanoki came up with some improvements to exposing sequence number of modifiers within Move, which will enable from richer tests. And finally, Mana from Hippo built out a simulation of transactions allowing for gas estimations, events, and right set outputs, which I think is huge because a lot of you have been actually asking for when we'd be able to tell you what is the estimated gas cost, when would how will we be able to tell the ramifications of doing a transaction, how can we test out transactions. And with that, I actually want to call Mana to the stage, I'd love to get some of his insights about some of his experiences in building this out. So let me see how I can do that, or maybe somebody else can bring Mana to the stage. Let's see, invite to speak. All right, welcome, Mana. Hopefully you can see the invitation and join us.
Mana was having some audio output difficulties, it looked like, in the channel. So will hopefully get them to be able to hear it.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, then with that, maybe we can monitor that. Oh, he's on. Mana, how you doing?
I can work with Mana. Well, let's leave Mana on here for now. I'll see if I can message Mana on the side and see if we can work through the audio.
I'm back. Are you guys can hear me?
Okay. So let's pause on that. Mana, once you're up and running, let Greg know and we'll bring you back on. For now, let's actually head over to Sherry, who's going to run through some of the recommendations for AIT success criteria.
Perfect. I know everybody is super excited and then looking forward to join the AIT2 registrations and wanted to really get to know, hey, what does need to be done to be a successful operators if I'm chosen to be an AIT2 operator, or what are the things I can do to increase my chances of being a operator, selected operators for AIT2. I'm going to run through a couple points and things like might be helpful for you to know, like what would be a good things or some metrics we're looking for when we're doing the node selections and during the node measurement stages. So obviously from the beginning, if you're already a full node operators and been running on DevNet, or you've participated in AIT1, you have the basic understanding of what is a validator, what is a full node. But if you're new to the space, I would highly recommend everybody to go read our documentations, understand Aptos tech stacks, understand what is a validator role, what is a full node role, and what are the differences between these two type of node and what they're doing. So navigate to aptos.dev if you don't know what I'm talking about just yet. And there's a lot of information to walk you through the different components for a node and what's needed to set them up. To get yourself practice a little bit more, you can even try to run a full node on DevNet right now. That's don't really require any selections or don't have a criteria for join. So practice yourself if you can. And then next is obviously pick the machines from a reliable source. I know a couple folks ask, hey, what's the minimums and can I run it from my laptop? Can I run on a Raspberry Pi? Obviously, for some of the cases, yes, you can. If your laptop is powerful enough, you can. But we highly recommend you to try to run your node on a cloud or a server that has reliable power sources and reliable internet access and a really good network bandwidth, because those are going to impact your node performance. It will impact your chances of getting selected as a participant for AIT2. So pick a machines from major cloud or a different cloud. I know folks are being using a variety of different cloud and VSP providers. Those are all much better than machines that's only from your laptop, and you might lose the uptime when you close your laptop. And then third, make sure to meet our minimum hardware requirement. We will be checking this during the registration. If you don't know what's the minimum requirement for storage, network, and hardware, CPUs or memory, also navigate to our documentation stage. Everything is documented, and if we have any updates, it will be all reflected over there. And then next, I would say try to pick a region that's not so US centric. From AIT1, we've definitely seen lots of nodes are running from the US regions. Well, and then because our goal is try to run a network that's decentralized and diverse across the world and avoid single point of failure. So very popular regions are going to have a really high competitions, and your chances of being selected will be lower. But obviously, we don't know for every registration which region this time is going to be a hot region. So it's hard to know. But based on the experience, try if you can try to run a machines from not a US region. That would be helpful. Next, Try to, if you're running a full node, deploy the validator and the full node in separate machines. That's because that's definitely going to provide the separations and much better reliabilities for the separation. And the full nodes usually used to protect the traffic in front of a validator node. So if you run them in the same machine, that defeats the purpose of having a full node in front of your validator. And next, make sure your network is configured properly to accept connections. During registration stages, we are going to send requests to check a couple of things about your nodes to make sure you meet our requirements, your node performance is up to a bar, and then health check passes. So if your machines or your network configuration don't allow any connection, you will not be able to pass the stages. Also for later, when you were selected as a validator node, we wanted to make sure other validator nodes can establish reliable connection to your node. This is also to ensure the good connections for our blockchain. Next thing is to check if your cloud provider provide DDoS protection out of the box. We know a couple of the major cloud providers already have this type of service. For example, if you're AWS customers, there is going to be load sheddings or some basic protections out of the box for you to use, and you don't have to worry about these things. But also lots of the second tiers or mid-tier, lower tier cloud providers don't have this out of the box. So you will need to figure out a solution for your node because we do see from AIT1, from very early days, there will be DDoS attack for each of the node. We will publish more best practice for closing the metrics port to reduce your attack surface, but still, you should have a good solutions for DDoS protection. And if you use our Terraform setup, we do have an Atri proxy installed in the same setup for the node to provide basic rate limitings per IPs, per like node identity, that type of things. You can take a look if you're running on Dockers or a bare metals to implement similar setup like a Atri proxy would provide. Cool. And the next is obviously very proactively monitoring the health of your node and proactively alert on it so that you get notification if you're under attack so that you can very proactively mitigating this type of issues and then try to make sure like your node is under a good health going forward to meet our minimum requirement for getting the token reward as a participant. And then monitoring our Discord channels, any discussions or announcement we will be publishing in the Discord channel. For any operators being selected as a partner, we will have dedicated channels to help you answer questions and then help you navigate through this whole process. And obviously file GitHub issues on our repo to get your answer tracked and answered is a really great way as well. Cool. That's basically all the points I have right now, but we will keep this type of discussions in our Discord channel. So if you have any feedbacks or have any questions, we can continue our discussion there. Yeah, hand over back to David.
Awesome. That's really exciting, Sherry. Thank you for sharing that. I'm hopefully going to see a whole bunch of very successful registrants in the coming week. Just wanted to double check in with Greg. Any luck with Mana, or is that going to unfortunately have to be postponed?
Yeah, I think Mana is going to unfortunately have to be postponed. There's VPN plus Discord voice doesn't work very well. We're going to postpone to the future and see if we can get like a presentation and text Q&A if the audio doesn't work.
Awesome.
Sounds
All right,
good.
well,
and maybe this is the time we can take some questions from the audience too. Like if you have any questions from the content we talked about before, feel free to raise your hand. I see Igor raised his hand.
Hello, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, pleasure to meet you. Thank you very much for the spaces. It's really important information for all the validators out there. I have a few questions regarding the points where validator can increase his chances on to getting to the AIT2. And the question is the following. I do understand that the Web3 is all around the decentralization, and all professional validators have different locations for the servers to support it on different networks. So in case we will be filling out the form, let's say, or pre-install the node to get accepted for the AIT2, as an additional point, for example, as Validatrium, we participate in more than 45 networks, and we have more than 80 nodes out there. And we do have a lot of different data centers to place our nodes at. And do we need to list it somewhere, or how do we need to notify the team about that?
That's a really good question. I think we do have a professional, like a validator partnership program where we don't give them the incentivized tokens, but we recognize there is people really professional running nodes in this industry and have spending excessive amount of resources and knowledges in this space. So we do wanted to partner with those peoples and companies and groups. So feel free to send an email request to our info@aptoslabs.com address. We do have like a different programs to help those type of validator companies to be successful in this space. They might not be able to get token reward because of the incentivized testnet partnership, but we do have the different channels for them to get prepared, still get the chance to practice, and then provide them a chance to be successful during the mainnet launch. So if your group or your companies is falling into this bucket, feel free to send us an email request, and we can give you more information about how to become a validator partnership program candidate.
Well, thank you very much for the explanation. Don't you mind if I will DM you and ask a few additional questions?
Sure, go ahead. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the answers.
Thank you for the question. We do collected a couple of questions from the type forum ahead of this meetings. If we don't have any hands raised during this time, we can read through some questions and then get some answers there as well. Cool, let me get to see the questions. Okay, from our survey, people ask, will setting up nodes for AIT2 be very different from AIT1? What are the fundamental differences? This is a good question. I don't think it will be a huge difference. There could be a couple of new operations operator need to do because we're trying to test different type of features. And for AIT2, we are going to much focused on testing our staking framework. So there is going to be operator tools for node operators to increase their staking lockup time or try to join and leave. And then we will publish the required operations for all the node operators afterwards. But yeah, all the updates will also be inflected on our aptos.dev documentation site. The whole process will be very similar, just a couple new things to test on. Cool. Next question. Does AIT2 only involve running validator nodes, or will participants also have to run full nodes? Running full nodes has been really highly recommended because that provides the community a way to get access to our network without asking the validators to open up their the REST APIs for the world. So it's definitely still very highly recommended for all the validator participants to run a full nodes. And as we talked about earlier during requirements, we highly recommend people running full nodes and validator in different machines to ensure the high reliabilities of both nodes. So yeah. Cool. What is the difference between full nodes and validator nodes? The biggest difference is validator nodes participated in consensus. They get to vote and propose blocks, while full nodes only stay syncs, and you can think of as a replicas, copies of all the ledger histories and database, but it doesn't participate in consensus. So yeah, that's the major difference.
Hey,
And
Sherry,
sorry,
we have
go ahead.
we have a speaker who wants to speak.
Yeah, let me invite him to stage. All right, Eddie. I have a
Hello,
question.
guys. Thank
Hello.
you for taking my question. Has it been announced the active set size for AIT2 yet? How many validators are going to be into it?
Good question. We are about to publish a media post with all the numbers that's relevant to AIT2 this coming week. It's either Wednesday or Thursday, probably Thursday, along with the registration open, with what's the participation criterias, what's the success criterias, how many number of nodes, and what's the number like of minimum stakes we're going to give out to the peoples, and that type of all the information. So numbers about AIT2 will be coming in a media post soon.
Okay,
The one
great.
thing we can add to that is with the additional health checks that
Do
we're
you have
providing.
anything to add?
Can you hear me?
Cool. If not, thank you for the question, Eddie.
You're welcome. I have a couple more questions, but I think your colleague David is talking.
Yeah. So I wanted to call out a couple things in that space. We're also figuring out how to do this completely remote. So
Well,
fun
go ahead if
times.
you have more questions.
Now, Sherry, I think you might be muted. You're not hearing Dave talking. I am under the impression. I mean, you're not hearing him talk because you guys constantly talk over each other.
All right, I'll talk and see how that goes. Hopefully, everybody can hear me.
I can hear you fine, and I think Sherry just muted herself, so it should work now.
Cool. So the one thing I want to call out there is the team has been actively pushing the limits on the system to evaluate the maximum nodes we can take with the current configuration. And we're also going to have more stringent health checks to make sure that folks are actually able to participate in a reasonable fashion. Like one of the things that we discovered last time was people were they properly got through all the way through registration, but once they actually got there, their node was in a situation to where it was ineffectual, and we obviously that's not good for them. That's not good for the network, and so that does limit how many people that we can have in those circumstances. So by helping those people not be in that situation, hopefully we can push the numbers up a lot. So we'll nail on those down specifically towards the end of the week. But I think you had other questions, Eddie. So
Yeah. Thank you, David. There one person here in the chat saying they also can't hear you. That's very weird. But what size were the DDoS attacks on AIT1? I need to know how much protection to purchase. What should I be expecting on average, or how big were the attacks?
I'm going to delegate that to Sherry. I poked her asynchronously.
Sorry, I've been
I'm
having
going
some technical difficulties. I can't hear David at all. That's very interesting. But sorry,
Yes.
can you repeat the question? I was distracted about
David just dropped off, and he's going to try to join again and see if it works. There's some other people who can't hear David. That's very weird. Oh, he's back now, but he's not speaking. I wanted to ask you, Sherry, I need to know how much DDoS protection to purchase, because we're not running on standard cloud centers. We run bare metal on separate data centers around the world, and we need to purchase a la carte the DDoS protection. How big were the attacks on AIT1?
That's a really good question. I think we are collecting the feedbacks from AIT1 participants to see what kinds of traffic volume they're seeing. But mostly, I think folks are seeing the attacks from their metrics port, which in this stages, we are going to recommend everybody's to close their metrics port after they passes the health check for the selection stages. But yeah, I will get back to you on that questions later once we have a better recommendation. But yeah, is the model is that you will have to purchase the protection package ahead of time, or can that be monitored dynamically and then purchase more as you go? I'm not so familiar with the model.
It depends. It depends on the provider. Some of them will, you have to ask for a certain level of protection, and if it goes above that, they'll either cut you off or not protect you anymore. And then if you need to place an order for more protection, you have to talk to a salesperson. It takes a couple hours, and it's not Amazon, and we run on tier 3 and 4 data centers, but their process is a little more manual. Now, I wanted to suggest something. It's
So
really
just on
interesting.
that point, to Sherry's to your point, Eddie, with the elimination of the metrics port, the only port that's available is a TCP port that isn't easily pokeable. So it
Okay.
should be much more secure and much harder for a denial of
Sorry,
service.
I don't, you cut off for me for a short time period. I don't know if anyone else heard Eddie's question.
I was explaining the process of purchasing more or less protection from different providers that are not fully automated for that, such as the big cloud providers. But David is speaking now. I'm not sure if you can hear him. Or he was speaking up until I started, and he's explaining how there's only going to be a TCP port that's going to be hard to poke, and the metrics port is going to be closed. So that should be less likely that we'll be experiencing DDoS and AIT2.
Perfect summary. I'll let you
Yep.
carry on with your next question.
That's all good.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks.
So sorry guys, one last thing. Our AIT1, we had the validator in Brazil to be very unique, and we had our node in Germany. Did your scoring system count as in Brazil or Germany?
Both locations are good. I think like Brazil, Germany, I mean, it's hard to tell at this point like which location will be the popular or centric location. We try to get an algorithm that select like random nodes like as across the world, as diverse region as possible. But
Okay.
also we're getting feedbacks from the last round that people feel that might be not the best way, that's not so fair. We will publish more about how we're going to select this for this round. We will leave at least a minimum of 20% of the spots for our community contributors who has been really participating in our GitHub repos, helping us building toolings and stuff, and helping people answer questions in the Discord. We're still trying to figure out all the details there. But yeah, hopefully we will publish all the details soon.
Thank you, Sherry. Well, one last question, and thank you for your time. When you are joining as a company, I understand you will not receive testnet rewards because of the SAFT structures you guys have in place. But is there a program for delegating to companies that are experienced validators and are validating on several chains? They won't receive rewards from the testnet, but you do have a foundation delegation program, so they are able to run on a larger stake because of that, or no?
That's a really good question. I wanted to see if like Avery or David wanted to jump in, or I just didn't hear them at all before.
No, I don't think anyone else spoke while I was speaking. No.
Okay.
I'm happy to share. So thanks so much for that question. I think our goal is to help facilitate the community building up its ability to run this network very stably and very securely. With that in mind, as we publish statistics about how everyone's doing, I think it'd be very clear to those who do delegate into the network about which operators are the best ones to help secure that network.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you for the question, Eddie.
Thank you, guys.
We have another raised hand in the stage. Let's invite AB Consulting 45.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I have only one question. Could we have a report on everything that has been tested on the IT1 and the results? For example, how many transactions per second, and on how many nodes to evaluate if this is good or not, and what you expect for the next to see, to have I don't know the word, to see what to expect for the IT2.
Good question. All the numbers related to AIT2 we will share in a media post soon, later today. And it will include how many numbers of validators. I think we're talking minimum of like at least 200 with some extra like a new batches of validator to dynamically join afterwards. But we will share those numbers. As for transactions, since we don't have lots of like traffic yet on the incentivized testnet and devnet, it's hard to tell how many traffic we will see during this time. But yeah, as long as you're meeting our hardware requirements and that all the requirements we're set in the documentation, you should be all good.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the question. Since there's no more question in the request queue, we can keep on going with the questions we got during the Typeform. Cool. The next question is, why run a full node on DevNet? This is a good question. I think people have been really passionate about running nodes on DevNet, on incentivized testnet. But for full nodes on DevNet, it helps you build out your technical understandings of what it requires to run a node. And it also helps you to get access to a DevNet or a testing environment. So if you're building applications on top of Aptos, running a full node on DevNet can get your applications the right and RAID access to the Aptos networks, and then it helps you to make sure that your transactions are getting through. And then as a normal node operators, obviously this is a good times for you to understanding what kinds of traffic, what kinds of behaviors, and what kinds of things you might be seeing on DevNet. So yeah, this is really a testing ground or experimental developer ground for enable different type of activities going forward. Next question. Can one AIT2 participant run 2 validator nodes, or is it considered a violation? David, do you want to answer this question?
Sure. Thank you, Sherry. Hopefully you can hear me now, but I doubt it. So in this scenario, what the reality is, the hope and the purpose of AIT is to be inclusive and allow as many individuals to participate as possible. We do not want people to be running multiple nodes. We don't want multiple participations. We are actively analyzing the participations, the registrations, to identify people that have multiple registrations and are excluding them. We did actually identify some scenarios in AIT1 where people did somehow manage to actually get multiple validators, and we'll deal with that appropriately. We'll ensure that those individuals will be excluded from future AITs. And so please do the morally right thing to enable as many of the folks within the Aptos community to participate in AIT2 and 3. And so that's the line that we're taking, and we'd love to have, again, as many people participate in the AITs as possible. Getting back to you, Sherry.
Thanks, David. Cool. Next question. What metrics for evaluating validator performance will be introduced in AIT2? Will the requirement be the same as AIT1, or will they change? Again, we will publish all those metrics and numbers soon in a media post, so make sure you don't miss that post, and we will absolutely announce it in Discord as well once the post is out. Cool. We have a hand raised in the queue, so I'm going to invite this person to speak.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sherry, thank you very much. Most of my questions have been already answered. Just one thing left. I know that for AIT2 phase, if we are selected, we will be running a validator node and a full node. But in the selection process, because I want to prepare my hardware, do I have to run both in the selection process as well, or it is once I have been selected?
Good questions. During selection process, we only require people to run validator node. That's the checks we're going to run. Full node is optional, and then you can. But we highly recommend people to run a full node. However, it's not a hard requirement to pass the selection.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you. Cool. Next questions in the form is what what minimum and optimal system requirements would you recommend for nodes and validators? This will be covered in the aptos.dev documentations for incentivized testnet hardware requirements and storage requirements. So we will share the links for this in the channel again. People can all go read it. If we have any updates, it will also be reflected in our documentation. So always refer to the documentations as source of truth for this. Next question, will it be possible to get into mainnet based on results of AIT2? I don't know if David or Avery wanted to answer this question. If not, I can also answer it.
So we have, as was mentioned, there's a foundation. The foundation will be looking for folks for delegation and staking purposes. Performance in AITs are a great indication of future success. And so we haven't made any formal decisions, announcements. That's not even necessarily ours in that space to be made. And so details will be forthcoming, but we do love to see high quality performance more than anything else in the AITs.
Thanks, David. We also have many other questions that's not related to AIT2. I think we covered most of all the questions in our survey for AIT2, unless if anybody in the audience, you have questions, feel free to raise hand anytime, or else I'll move on with the questions there in the forum. Okay. What makes Aptos different? Why Aptos? I guess we get these questions really a lot. Avery, do you want to do the
Yeah, I'd love to take this question. I think, we could talk about this for a long period of time. But I think the biggest things that make Aptos very different are its approach. So the three things that I've called out is one, that we kind of co-designed this software with Move and the DM blockchain for the last 3 years, working within Meta to make this technology serve billions of people around the world. And so Move is a safe and programmable language that would enable scalable smart contract design, the DM blockchain, which would do the same thing on the system side of things. And I guess the ability for upgrades, I think, is something that's also very distinctly, uniquely different for us, where we believe that as new use cases and as new technology comes to light, we quickly integrate those into our network and are able to keep pushing this chain along and making it last for many generations of users to come. Specifically with our approach, I can call a couple of technical decisions that are very different from an infrastructure standpoint. One of those would be that we kind of think of our network as analogous to a superscalar pipeline CPU processor, where you have multiple stages of operation that we break down our processing framework into, a phase for transaction dissemination, consensus of metadata, parallel execution, storage, and then proof generation as a way to get extremely high throughput and low latency. And we also are maximizing for decentralization through the approach of having a selection criteria for validators that rotates very quickly and allows everyone equal participation in the network. And I think those are kind of the key things that I'll call out for now. We'll be sharing more. We have our blog post, we have our light paper, and we'll be sharing a fuller white paper in the coming weeks. But yeah, I think that's the stuff that I would like to highlight for now. Feel free to answer any questions around that, and we can discuss that on this chat as well.
Cool, thanks, Avery. I guess there is also a next question for you as well. Why did you choose the Byzantine fault tolerance consensus protocol?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. So I think we can talk about that one very easily. So I think, we did, when we evaluated the consensus protocols of choice for DM back in 2018, we thought about probabilistic approaches, we thought about other approaches, and we felt like Byzantine fault tolerance gives immediate finality. And that's something that we find to be extremely valuable with respect to our system design, that you don't have to wait or have uncertainty around when your transaction is actually confirmed on the blockchain, as long as the Byzantine guarantees are upheld. So that's why we picked Byzantine fault tolerance.
Thank you. Next question, what other advantages and development cost of Move language? David? Maybe, or Avery?
Since David is not responding, I'll be happy to talk about this. The advantages so for Move being a new language, being just kind of built from the ground up to serve safe and smart and scalable smart contract development, I'd say the key advantages are simplicity. There isn't things like dynamic dispatch. Move is natively developed to support resource scarcity, has metering built into it. It's not something that's been bolted onto another language. It's specifically for smart contract development. These are the things that we think are going to really enable people to build reliably for billions of people. And we've seen that through our wonderful Discord channel, for all of you in the audience, from the hackathon that we've had in the past, and the many projects that have been starting to build already on top of Aptos. Many of them have been discussed in this forum in the past. The things that maybe are the downsides a little bit is that Move is obviously still a new language and still gaining traction. The developer tooling is something that's continuing to be improved. And this is where we look for feedback from all of you and from others in the space to help us grow and identify these pain points to enable faster iteration of that cycle. The other thing I might want to comment on is that, while Solidity and EVM have obviously gained a lot of support in this space, we think that the number of Solidity developers is in the tens of thousands of developers today. When you think about the developers available in the C++ ecosystem or the Rust ecosystem and Java and others, there's still a lot of developers that can come into the space and will be excited by what Move has to offer. And we're excited about being a platform that supports Move very natively.
Thanks, Avery. Next question, how can supporters who don't know how to code get involved in contributing? I'm not sure if James are in this call, but we do have, like, every Wednesday, there is a community forum where we get lots of discussions around community programs and different kinds of incentivized program that's like not so technically involved, and there's bug bounties and different ways for people to contribute. And I know recently we just held a meme hackathon for our community. So yeah, I don't know if Avery's or if James is here or David wanted to add anything there.
I don't know if you can hear me now, Sherry, but I actually want to go back to the previous question on some of the cool things about Move, and hopefully enough people can hear me so I'm not just talking to myself. So the other things that are really important about Move, if you're familiar with ecosystem building, having developed wallets, indexers, or other applications, one of the things that I really like about Move is the fact that you don't have to deal with the plethora of different implementations, experiences, and other aspects. And so you can think about NFTs or coins, and how if you look at Ethereum, ERC20, ERC751, and 1155, each one of those are just interfaces, and developers are free to kind of go in and establish a lot of nuanced aspects of that make it really hard for wallet developers and indexers and dApps to actually build a consistent experience for users. Whereas in Move, because of the emphasis on simplicity and data flow models, these are all very consistent. An indexer only needs to know about the existing set of data that's going to be there, and users are free to add extensions beyond what the baselines are there, but we have a consistent and similar baseline that makes it really easy for wallet developers, indexers, and other applications to quickly get into that space. And that was just the last thing I want to add in there. And so, Sherry, I think we do have a hand raised, so let's bring, it looks like KB Consulting back to the floor.
Yep, go ahead, KB Consulting. You are muted.
Hello, you hear
Yes.
me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I have another question. Could we expect to have the white paper on the tokenomics before August? Hello?
Yeah, I can take this one. So thanks for your question. We are definitely working very hard on both of those papers, and hopefully we'll get them to you as soon as possible.
Cool. Thank you for the question. Do you have any
Thank
more
you.
questions?
No, thanks.
Thanks. I have another hand raised. Arthur.
Hi.
Hi.
Can someone a node from Africa?
Sorry.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead. Maybe Arthur can't hear me.
Yeah, so I could hear him for a bit and now it's cut out. Maybe it's a connection issue. Can you hear me, Sherry?
Yeah, we're all good. Arthur dropped off. I think he was going to ask, can I run a node from Africa, or maybe are there any incentives from running from Africa? I can kind of jump on that one. Sherry, you can correct me where I'm wrong. As Sherry stated, diversity is the key here. We definitely look at the geographical distribution where folks are located, and we do definitely love to see people running nodes in places where you don't traditionally see nodes running. And so I think in the previous round we had a couple of nodes running in Africa, and we'd love to see more running from Africa.
Yes, absolutely. Please increase our Africa community. I love that. Thanks for the question, Arthur.
A similar question on the Discord channel I noticed was someone asked, do we care about the geographical location of the person running the node or the geographical location of the server?
Of the server. So you can be, the person can be located anywhere, but we mostly measure where the validator node is located. So yeah, it's the server's location, not your location. Cool, we have another hand raised in the chat.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Do you have a question?
Audio is not working. I'll try again in a second.
Okay, we can hear you now though.
Yeah, we
No
can hear
problem.
you now.
Okay, let's come back to this. Cool. Maybe we can continue the remaining few questions in the survey. Next is, how do you create and fund a new account?
So that's a question regarding, I believe, how do you contact Faucet? We've got a handful of tutorials out there. So if you head over to aptos.dev and get into the getting started location, or even just my first transaction will kind of guide you through that process of being able to query the faucet, creating, getting the funds for that account and creating it. And then you can kind of dig in from some of that code to actually see how we call into the script functions under account for create account or create and fund account. So you can actually develop something if you want to actually create an account from a single place, like such as one account creating another account.
Thanks, David. Next question, how are transaction fees calculated?
So I'll take that one as well. So there's some legacy code that we're dependent upon in the Move repository that effectively dictates that a certain operation within inside of Move will require this many units of gas. Then through the execution of the functions, the processes, we are basically able to come up with a total gas cost for a given transaction. And then we multiply that against the base rate that the transaction is willing to pay, and that will dictate basically the entirety of the gas fees. Now that's what we have today. Over the next couple of weeks or month, we're going to actually be instituting a reevaluation of the existing cost per functions and setting more realistic numbers for those. For instance, it's very imperative that we don't see an explosion of state on the blockchain. So we do anticipate that the cost for creating new resources will go up to some extent. Likewise, modules today are extremely cheap to publish, to the point where somebody could actually do a very easy DDoS attack on our system by just excessively publishing modules for dirt cheap, which doesn't really make sense, but legacy schedules that being what they are. And then the other thing that was really exciting that I was hoping that Mana would be able to present today is that we have a new simulation API that we will be, thanks to his efforts, that allow you to actually come up with gas estimations by directly querying the node. we are hoping to extend some of this or simplify some of this logic, especially with the revamp of the schedule, so that users could potentially estimate the gas costs without having to query a full node. But that remains to be more likely a feature that will deliver sometimes either right before mainnet or even after mainnet.
Awesome. Thank you for the answer. Next question is about NFT. Where is the off-chain metadata of NFT stored?
So the intent for our NFT standard is that we have a URI there where you can place any metadata or any content or media that you want to directly link to. We are still establishing some general guidelines or standards, if you will, really recommendations of how folks should be concocting a potential JSON blob that then points to actual media. Now, in terms of where you want to store that, that's really up to the framework and system that you want to use. We've experimented with both IPFS and Arweave, but we also recognize that there may be benefits in more traditional clouds type of storages just to have low latency aspects as well. And so we're actually thinking about potentially maybe having multiple URIs so that users can give greater flexibility in terms of redundancy of storage.
Perfect. Thank you. Next, are there any developer incentive programs?
So that's something that we're really excited and we're actively working on. I think we're going to have something within the next few weeks where folks can start actually making a proposal, sharing proposals with the team, the organization, and we can start evaluating those and get more collaboration with inside the community. And we're really excited about that.
It's also very exciting to see that some of our project we see during the hackathons are keeps ongoing, and they are going to come to our office, sitting with us with a residency program, accelerator programs to finish the projects they started during the hackathon. So I'm really looking forward to those as well. Next questions. What culture does the project bring to the masses? I guess like Avery.
Sure. This is a lovely question. I think sometimes, all of us being in the technology space, we think about these as being technology problems that we're trying to solve. And in reality, this is really societal problems that we're trying to address. We hope that this culture is what all of you make it to be. Like, our goal is to, basically help build out the best technology possible to enable all kinds of different use cases, all kinds of different opportunities for different types of people, whether they're going to be people in, countries, like in the US, or countries, outside in Europe or in Asia, but also, countries like in Africa and other parts of the world, but also different kinds of demographics of people, especially those who have been underserved by existing systems today. And so we look forward to all of you helping to build that culture around the kind of creativity and the kind of ideas that you bring into our network. And we're really welcoming of all the different types of folks that want to join and participate with us.
Thanks for the answer, Avery. Awesome. That's all the questions we have in the survey. Also, we're about to reach the end of the session today. If there are any more questions from audience, feel free to raise the hand. We probably can get to another one or two. If not, yeah, we can probably just end it 2 minutes early.
I just want to say thank you, everybody, for participating and engaging with us this morning or this evening or this afternoon, wherever you're located. And we're really excited to see such activity in these Move Mondays. So let's keep it happening. Let's keep posting your questions to the Typeform survey and keep an engaging conversation going. Have a wonderful week.
Good to see you all. Yeah, see you next week.